cells are the things that make up your entire body. They make up your muscle tissues, they make up your skin, they make up your organs. Cells make up tissues, which make up organs, which make up loads and loads of different systems inside of your body that work in a wonderful, wonderful, beautifully fragile way. But what exactly is inside of a cell? You probably would have heard in your sort of school lessons, your science lessons, the kind of basic stuff. You've got a sort of a membrane, and I'm talking in terms of animal cells here, not plant cells. That can potentially be for a separate video. In terms of animal cells, you've got a cell membrane which is made up of fatty acids and glycerol that is used to track what comes in and out of the cell. Then you've got the mitochondria, the things that do aerobic respiration. You've got your Krebs cycles, your oxidative phosphorylations, and those processes that happen inside of that sort of little space. And then you've got your nucleus where all the DNA is stored, you've got your ribosomes which do protein synthesis, and then you've got your cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is said to be at this sort of knowledge level, just like a viscous liquid, a thick liquid that contains all the other sort of chemicals and all the other chemical processes. It's said to be the place where the majority of the chemical reactions happen. Things like your glycolysis happens inside of there, and probably things like cholesterol, biosynthesis as well. That would all happen inside of the cytoplasm. But there are a whole load of other things that are contained inside of the cytoplasm, which are the things that help make sure that these chemical reactions happen. And there's an image that I use when I want to represent a cell in videos that I use to edit, and it's like a 3D image, you know, sort of the images where you've got a picture of the earth and it's got like a quarter cut out and you can sort of see all the different layers until you get to the inner one. I have an image like that which I use for the image of a cell, and it's got like a little bit cut out so you can sort of see all the different like things that occur, and it seems very, very confusing. It's not just your generic school image where it's 2D and you've got the mitochondria, the ribosomes, the nucleus and the cell membrane. It's not only just got those four things plus the cytoplasm, which is basically just everything else inside of the basic images. You've got loads of different like funky shapes inside of the one that I like to use, and it was just kind of the first one that came up because on the internet that is how the people that sort of discuss those kind of things like cells, they have more of an advanced understanding and knowledge, and that basically is just the sort of basic understanding of biology and of anatomy for them. So the first subcell structure that I'm going to talk about in this video is an endoplasmic reticulum, which is like kind of like a zigzaggy little thing. And I remember I did see this a couple of times inside of the sort of basic images inside of the school textbooks, and it was like one of the things where it's got like, if it starts here, it goes in and then it goes out and then it goes out and then it goes in again and then it goes, it's like a little zigzag, but it's a bit weird. And I was always told that like big zigzag thing was the ribosome, but ribosomes are actually much smaller, and the ribosomes are the things that are on the endoplasmic reticulum. They're like the little dots that are just stationed there, and this endoplasmic reticulum is sort of centered around the nucleus. So when the RNA comes out of the nuclear pores to go through protein synthesis, it's basically immediately at some ribosomes, and it'll just go to the nearest one, which is not currently being used. And these endoplasmic reticulums are also involved in lipid biosynthesis. Now cholesterol, which is I've talked about the process of how that is made inside of the body in another video, that is classified as a lipid. It is fat soluble, so it can be dissolved inside of fat, but it can't be dissolved inside of water, so that classifies it as a lipid. And so that means that cholesterol will probably be biosynthesized inside of this endoplasmic reticulum, which is technically part of the cytoplasm inside of the basic images. Now the second subcellular structure is known as a Golgi body, and if you've ever sort of seen the baggage sorting machines inside of airports, this Golgi body is a bit like that. It sorts all of these molecules that have been created inside of these endoplasmic reticulums. They all are transported to the Golgi body, where they will be sort of sorted, put into different piles, and then they'll be transported individually to the place where they need to be, essentially. Maybe an example would be cholesterol. Cholesterol is used inside of the cell membranes and inside of the structures of the cell to make sure it can be quite fluid instead of like a rigid sphere. While you may think that cells are like 2D and stuff like that, like you would have seen in your textbooks, they are actually 3D, and so like it's like a fluid ball in a way. And if cholesterol wasn't like made and biosynthesized inside of these cells, that cell wouldn't be a fluid ball and it would be a lot more rigid. And another example, it would also be transported out of the cell to go do things like making steroid hormones, depending on which cell it's already in. If it's already in a cell that is capable of making testosterone because it has the correct enzymes and stuff like that, then great, it'll be transported out to the place where that particular testosterone molecule is going to be made. But if it's not, it will be transported out of the cell and into the bloodstream to go to that particular site and particular cell. Now, the third subcellular structure that is inside of the cell is known as a lysosome, and a lysosome is something that breaks down stuff that enters the cell. There would be things that enter the cell that the cell membrane allows to pass through that still need to be sort of digested more to actually be able to create energy and create things that are actually useful for the body. But yeah, essentially the lysosome has loads and loads of digestive enzymes inside of it, which means that it can break down and do loads of stuff to different substances. The lysosome also releases molecules to repair cells, and it signals to other parts of the cells if there are any sort of toxic things inside of it, or there are any kind of invaders, things like viruses and stuff like that. Now, the fourth subcellular structure is sort of the different parts of the nucleus. You've been told that the nucleus is like a little ball and it just contains all the DNA, but that is not necessarily always the case. It's not just one thing. There are different layers, just like how there are different layers to the Earth. There are different layers to the nucleus itself. You've got like little holes in the outer layer of the nucleus called the nuclear pores, which let the RNA through for it to go through protein synthesis. I did talk about that a little bit earlier on. You've then got the nucleolus, which is a bit of a mouthful, and it's the place where ribosomes are actually synthesized. They'll be synthesized inside of the nucleolus, which is like the very, very center part of the nucleus, and they'll go out and they'll be put into the endoplasmic reticulum, and then the DNA, which is sort of in between the outer layer where the nuclear pores are and the nucleolus, that is where all the chromosomes and chromatids and stuff like that are kept, and that's where all the DNA is kept, and that's where the DNA will be coded into RNA, and then the RNA will escape and be coded by the ribosome. So yeah, that's basically everything that's inside of a cell, and that will be like the most basic type of cell that you can possibly imagine. You've got specialization, which will mean that something like a stem cell, which is probably not a bad explanation of what this cell is. You could probably say that this cell is quite similar to a stem cell. A stem cell like this can turn into something like a nerve cell, like a red blood cell. Red blood cells don't even contain nucleuses or anything like that, because they just need more space to carry loads of oxygen around the body. So it's not like a one and done thing how this sort of cell is structured, but there are many people who have much more advanced knowledge than I do that will know everything about that. But with that, I recommend subscribing, because I love this community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves so much more than they already have, and good luck.